Warning, this video contains strong language that may be offensive to some viewers. Please be advised. Otherwise, please enjoy. Several days later, the cleaning team is working in a dungeon as usual. Well, almost. While cleaning, Juno is singing about how he has to get cleaning. Juno is startled when Minju suddenly joins him. He asks her what she is doing here, and if she doesn't have work to do. Minju asks him what he is talking about, and she tells him she is working. Juno tells her that he bets her team will sure be happy if they see their team leader doing such dirty cleaning work. She needs to remember she's a hunter. However, members of her team are also in the dungeon, cleaning. The female hunter, Jiang Hong, asks if there is more monster dismantling that needs to be done today. The healer hunter asks how he can peel off the monster flesh that's stuck to the ground. Gunte begins laughing, and he tells Juno that he got him. Juno is at a loss for words. Soyeon asks them if anyone is interested in helping with some disinfecting. Sang-hyuk tells them that all they just need is a single pair of hands. The hunters rally together and respond with enthusiasm. Just leave it up to us, we the strategy team 2, are one with the cleaning team 3, in body and in spirit. Juno is thinking that he should just let them be. Sometime later, Juno asks Minju what she wants, and he tells her that he knows she is not here, just to help out with some cleaning. Minju is feeling nervous, and she tries to laugh it off. She tells him that she has come across some issues with planning out the operation schedule for this month. Juno lets out a sigh, and he tells her to let it out. With enthusiasm, Minju exclaims "Okay, master," and she takes out her notebook and pencil. She tells him that her team's quota for this month is 50 dungeons, but she can't figure out how they can make it work with the hunters that they have now. Juno remarks that that number is definitely high for a small team such as hers. Normally, to meet a quota of 50 dungeons, they would need 40 hunters. However, Strategy Team 2 only has 17 members. Minju sighs out of frustration. She tells Juno that apparently, any dungeon ranked below the blue level doesn't count towards the quota. Juno tells her that is a straight-up lie. The headquarters arbitrarily decides on the required minimum level, and it has nothing to do with the association's evaluation. Levels up to Navy should count towards the quota for blue, and a Navy-level dungeon should be doable by 3 to 4 people. He goes on to tell her to split her team into 3 groups, and then complete 2 conquests per day, 1 during the day, and 1 at night. If her team begins struggling, she can get assistance from the support team. Minju is brimming with admiration for her master. She tells him she is wowed, and she questions why she didn't think of that. She begins jotting everything down in her notepad. Juno thinks that not even team leaders with a decade of experience would be able to come up with a solution like the one he just gave her, so there's no way a rookie leader would. Minju tells him thank you so much, and that it seems like she is always indebted to him. Juno begins walking away, and he says that it's nothing. He tells her to get going if she is done with her business here, and his team will wrap up the cleaning. Minju begins sulking. She asks him if he finds her bothersome. Juno tells Minju that it's not her, but her secretary. Minju turns to look, and she lets out a scream when she sees a creepy woman looming behind her. She then whispers to Juno that she thought that they knew each other. Juno asks her what she is talking about, and he tells her that yesterday was the first time he met her. Minju tells him that she just assumed because of the way they stared at each other yesterday, so perhaps she was his ex-girlfriend. In a scary voice, Juno asks her if she has a death wish. Hae-yeon Song approaches them, and she tells Minju that they should get going if they want to make it to the executive operation meeting on time. Minju tells her that they still have plenty of time, and she suggests that they grab a bite to eat first. She then asks her to go ahead and make a lunch reservation, because she doesn't have phone service down here in the dungeon. Hae-yeon Song eagerly obliges, and she tells Minju that she will make a reservation for 9 people, including the cleaning team. She leaves quickly, while thinking about restaurants that serve a table d'hote menu. Juno tells Minju that they have phone service here. Minju tells him she knows, and it's just that she has something to tell him in private. She asks him if he happens to have a connection in the support team. Juno tells her no, and he asks her why. Minju tells him that the support team reached out to her, asking if she could arrange a meeting with him. And the weird thing is, they asked her to keep it a secret from Hae-yeon-song. Juno asks Minju what they are on about. He wonders what business the support team has with him. He thinks about what happened to Dongben Lim. He wonders if they are on edge because he was the one who brought down the strategy team. So maybe they want to put him on notice about not messing with them again. He thinks, regardless, there is no rush for him to reach out to them. He tells Minju to let the support team know that he will come see them himself when he has the time, and Minju affirms. Sometime later, the team finished cleaning the dungeon. Guntae says that they finished earlier than scheduled, and he thanks everyone for their hard work. One of the hunters tells him not to mention it, and they will come back tomorrow to help again. Minju calls for everyone's attention, and she announces that today's lunch is on her, to celebrate her promotion. The next day, a little boy is walking alone inside a dungeon, looking for his big brother. He calls out to him and says he is scared. He then hears a voice telling him, "Over here." He sees someone crawling on the ground towards him, and he calls out to his brother and asks if it's him. The person on the ground reaches out to him and asks for help. The little boy sees that the person is someone else, and he asks her if she is all right. However, he soon realizes the person is a monster. The Vega monster begins laughing in excitement. The little boy screams in terror. Later that day, news about a young boy being attacked quickly spread across the country. They report that today at around 12:30 p.m., a young boy was found attacked by a monster after accidentally entering a dungeon. Fortunately, he only suffered minor injuries but has been hospitalized. The news also report that the victim testified that he was able to enter the dungeon because the entrance was not barricaded. Min Chol-soo demands an explanation. Juno, Minju, and her secretary are in his office. Minju tells him that the dungeon is off limits for civilians in the first place, and Min Chol-soo cuts her off. He begins shouting, remarking that as if he doesn't already know. He tells her that he is asking why the area wasn't barricaded. He slams on the table and he says that is basic protocol. Minju is now standing with trepidation, and Hae-yeon-song is terrified. Juno, on the other hand, is unfazed. Juno is thinking that it was a miracle that they found the boy on their way out, and that if they were a second late, all of them, including the boy, would have been dead. Min Chol-soo continues yelling. He tells them that they better provide an explanation before this incident spirals out of control, and he asks them which moron is at fault. And then Juno says, "It's my fault, sir." He tells him that he forgot to put up the barricade when he went out for lunch. Minju and Hae-yeon-song are completely in shock. Minju asks Juno what he is talking about, because she saw him set up the barricade with her very own eyes. Juno quickly cuts her off, and in a scary tone, he tells her to keep her voice down. They are speaking to the general manager. Min Chol-soo asks if it's the cleaning team's fault then. Juno tells him no, and he explains that it was his own mistake, not the team's. Min Chol-soo asks Juno if he is saying that he is solely responsible for this accident. He then asks him what he is up to now, and what he would possibly gain from taking the blame. Juno tells him he is only telling the truth. He then tells him that, if he arranges a press conference tomorrow, he will go public and admit that he is at fault for neglecting his duty. Min Chol-soo tells him alright, he will schedule the press to arrive at 9 a.m. tomorrow. He also tells him to keep in mind that, with a major incident such as this, even he won't be able to dodge disciplinary action. He then tells them to leave if they are done. As soon as they step out of the room, Minju's entire body begins shaking violently. She is angry. She asks Juno what he thinks he is doing. Juno asks her about what. And then, Minju begins shouting at him. She tells him that she saw him set up the barricades last night. She understands that he is looking out for his team, but it is just not right. She goes on to say that none of it makes sense. The fact that the boy entered a dungeon so easily, and how a monster just happened to be there, in a dungeon that had already been subjugated. She tells Juno that this must be a setup, and she asks him why he is taking all the blame, when he has done nothing wrong. Juno asks her what of it. Minju is confused by his nonchalant response. Juno entertains her idea. Okay, let's say you're right, say it's a setup. He then poses her a question. Is there any way we can catch the culprit overnight before the press conference tomorrow? Minju tries to answer the question, but she fails to come up with a rebuttal. Juno tells her it is obvious that the incident was thoroughly planned, and not just by some ordinary people. So how will they catch them before the press conference tomorrow morning? Minju tries to plead with him, but he disregards her. He tells her to just stay quiet, and he will take accountability for the incident. Juno knows Minju is right, the whole thing was a setup. Vega isn't a monster that normally appears in that dungeon, and it was already inflicted with a lot of damage by someone. Juno begins grinning, while questioning why any of that should matter. Especially because, he is about to unlock another skill, at the cost of nothing. Polymorph. Requirement to unlock skill, increase public interest in the cleaning team. Sometime later, Minju is back in her office. She can't get over Juno's decision to take the fall for an accident that he didn't cause. She begins rehashing the incident, with the possibility that someone may have removed the barricade simply by accident. But, even so, of all the times the dungeon was opened, a child just happened to enter it, 30 minutes before perishing. Not to mention, a live monster was left behind in a dungeon that was already subjugated. She can only conclude that the whole incident was a setup to frame her master and the cleaning team. Based on the circumstances, she assumes the culprit is someone from the association. She thinks about how she is a team leader, and yet, she is doing nothing, and not being of any help. She buries her face in her hands and grunts loudly. She is completely racked with frustration. Her team can't help but notice how she is feeling, and they approach her. The healer hunter tells her that they heard about what happened, and that they don't think it's right. Jin Ho Lee asks why Sir Juno Kim should take the blame for something he didn't do. Jiang Han agrees, and she suggests that they go after the culprit. The healer hunter points out that Juno helped them during the joint project, and now is the chance for them to return the favor. Minju awes at them, she appreciates their support. And then, she gives them a nod of affirmation, that they will take action. She announces, as of now, all operations will be put on hold, and Strategy Team 2 will begin a new operation, to find the true culprit. She tells her team that they will prioritize the search operation, even if it means not completing this month's quota. If anyone has objections, then let her know. Jin Ho Lee says they're a team that's walking on eggshells anyway, so who gives a damn about meeting the quota? The healer hunter agrees, and he says that they're outcasts anyway. Minju rallies her team to get going. And then, she stops in front of a woman, who's been standing at her door. The woman tells her it's a pleasure to meet her, and she tells her she is Deputy Manager Young Lee, from the support team. A few hours ago. Yun Song is back at the office, sobbing. She asks why this is happening to her. It's only been 3 days since she started working as Minju's secretary. Young Lee tells her that it isn't her fault, and that she just got unlucky. She asks her what's going to happen now. Yun Song tells her that Juno Kim said he will go public about his negligence at the press conference tomorrow. Young Lee questions how it is unusual, for someone who is connected to the chairman, to make such a mistake. Yun Song tells her that cleaner Juno Kim took full responsibility for the incident, but Minju Kim asserted that he was not at fault. Young Lee is in shock. She asks her if she's really saying that he's taking full responsibility over something he had nothing to do with. She questions if such a person still exists in this messed up organization. She wonders what Juno Kim is up to. He's got the chairman watching out for him, and yet he still has such dignity. She thinks a man of such dignity just might be able to bring about change in this corrupt and abominable organization. She asks Hae-yeon-song what she thinks about keeping this between them and helping them out. Minju asks her what brings the support team all the way here. Ah-young-lee tells her that they would like to offer some help. Minju is confused. Ah-young-lee tells her that she heard about the incident involving cleaner Juno Kim, and she asks her if they're trying to uncover the truth around the accident. Minju confirms. Ah-young-lee asks her if she made any progress. Minju tells her no, and that they're now getting started. They were just on their way out to visit the scene of the accident and obtain surveillance footage from the area. Ah-young-lee tells her that it's a good thing she is here, because her team would have wasted their time. Because not even members of the association can access surveillance footages without permission from the police. In addition, the dungeon is located in the slums, where there aren't very many surveillance cameras around. So her team would have gone there for nothing. Minju asks her if there is any other way. Ah-young-lee tells her that fortunately, there were a few cars there around the time of the incident, and that apparently, they all had dash cams installed. Hae-yeon-song is currently tracking down those cars. She saw the cars that day, when she left the dungeon to make lunch reservations, and apparently, she is able to recall all their license plates. Ah-young-lee tells her that, as soon as they track down the cars, they will be able to get their hands on the dash cam footage, and she whips out the official written notice. Minju tells her thank you so much. However, as soon as she reaches to grab the document, Ah-young-lee pulls it away from her. She tells her that of course, they're not helping out, without getting something in return. Minju is feeling a little discouraged. She tells her that she was just promoted to team leader only 3 days ago, so there's nothing she could possibly do for the support team. And then, Ah-young-lee asks her if she knows cleaner Juno Kim pretty well. She then asks her what kind of person he is. Minju replies, "Pardon?" Ah-young-lee clarifies herself. As she knows, Juno Kim is a man of rumors. There's all sorts of rumors surrounding him about who he is. A freelance hunter, a civilian guild spy, and even a connection with the chairman himself. She tells Minju that she'd like to know which of those rumors are true. Minju has no idea what Ah-young-lee is talking about. She tells her she never heard of such rumors. Ah-young-lee is struck with confusion. She asks Minju if she is being serious, and she tells her that the rumors have been circulating all over the headquarters for several weeks. Minju begins blushing with embarrassment. She tells her that she doesn't have anyone to talk to in the association, she's kind of a loner. And then, Ah-young-lee gets a shocking realization. Does Minju Kim really believe that Juno Kim is an actual cleaner? The hunters are sad. They're thinking, our poor boss, I feel so bad for her, I should keep her company from now on. Ah-young-lee clicks her tongue, and the hunters think she's judging their boss for not having any friends. Ah-young-lee is just deep in thought. She thinks about how there is a cleaner who is more than willing to take the fall for something he had nothing to do with, and there is a team leader who rallied her team to help him. She wonders why she never knew such good people existed in the association. She's decided. Ah-young-lee tells Minju that she will help. In return, she needs to arrange for her to meet Juno Kim sometime in the future. Minju asks her if she is for real. Ah-young-lee calls Hae-yeon-song and asks her if she located the cars yet. Somewhere in the city, Juno is looking dapper than ever. He just bought a suit to wear for the press conference. Suddenly, he gets a phone call from Soyeon. He asks her if something is up. Soyeon asks him if he heard from Minju today, and she tells him that she's been trying to reach her to ask her about something. Juno tells her that Minju is probably at work, subjugating dungeons. Soyeon tells him that it can't be, because today is her day off. Juno tells her not to worry about it, because operation team leaders are usually hard to reach. Soyeon asks him if he is sure. She tells him that she'd like to think that this isn't a big deal, but she is a little concerned about the text message that she received from her earlier. Juno asks her what about it. Soyeon tells him that she got a text from her saying that she will save him. Juno's jaw drops to the ground, and he begins panicking. Soyeon asks him if he knows what it's all about, and Juno cuts her off. He apologizes to her and tells her he'll call her later. He quickly hangs up and calls Minju. He waits anxiously while the phone rings. As soon as Minju answers, Juno asks her what she is up to. Minju tells him that she is on her way to Daejeon right now. Juno tells her that city is not even in her designated region. Minju tells him that they are looking for proof that it wasn't his mistake. She tells him that there were 4 vehicles with dash cams parked in front of the dungeon around the time of the incident, and they're on their way now to obtain the footage. She lets him know that she can get her hands on all of them by tonight. Juno's blood begins boiling. He tells her that he told her to sit still and stay quiet. Minju tells him that she couldn't just sit still, especially when she owes him big time. She assures him that she'll be of help, and she tells him not to worry. Juno is about to explode. Her staying quiet is how she would be helping him to unlock another skill. But no, she just can't listen to anyone once when her mind is set on something. Juno says alright, and he tells her to send him the locations of those vehicles. He's thinking he has to stop her from finding the evidence, no matter what. Minju tells him she will text him the locations. The boy next to Juno is thinking, whoa, this dude looks scary as hell. Minju tells him he should visit the little boy at the hospital, and Juno hangs up on her. And then, he gets on his hands and knees, and he screams loudly as he slams his head into the ground. People around him scream in shock. They are completely horrified. The boy that was next to him asks what is wrong with him, and if he is a lunatic. Someone remarks that there's blood everywhere. Moments later, the system notifies him that he is entering combat mode. Juno gets up from the ground, and he really looks scary as hell. He activates Hyper Boost and bolts out of there. He continues to run at lightning speed. He runs with fury towards his destination, questioning if they're all testing his patience. Later in the evening, Ah-young Lee visits the hospital. She approaches a man, and she tells him that she is from the association. She asks him if he is the child's guardian. He tells her that he has nothing to say to people from the association. Ah-young Lee informs him that the dungeon cleaning team will be speaking to the press tomorrow morning, and that they are still investigating the incident, even though the cleaning team isn't at fault. She tells him that, unless he speaks up, the cleaning team will be wrongly punished. The man grins with satisfaction, and he asks her if that isn't good news. This young man is Hunter Steve, a former hunter of the association. I want the cleaning team. No. Actually, that fucker Juno Kim, to be in deep shit. At a parking lot in Daejeon. A man is in his car, and he just decided he will have chicken for dinner today, when suddenly, someone knocks on his window. When he turns to look, he sees a scary face covered in blood, and he screams, thinking it's a zombie. Juno greets him and tells him that he's from the association, and that he is going to need his cooperation. As Juno reaches over to grab the dashcam, the man questions Juno about being from the association, and he tells him that he's just a normal civilian. And then, Juno crushes the dashcam. The man is in shock. He begins yelling at Juno. What do you think you're doing? What the fuck did you destroy my dashcam for? As Juno walks away, he tells the man that he will receive compensation from the next association personnel. And then, Juno gets on his hands and knees, and slams his head into the ground. The man screams in shock, thinking that this man is harming himself. Juno activates Hyper Boost and bolts out of there, leaving the man flabbergasted. He wonders if he just saw a flying zombie. Moments later, Minju and her team arrive at the scene, and the healer hunter points to the car they're looking for. Minju approaches the man, and she informs him that they're from the association. As she is about to ask him for his permission, the man cuts her off. He is furious. He remarks that it is another one from the goddamn association. He asks her what the hell they think they're doing, and if they all want to get sued or something. Manhua is taken aback, and she tells him she is sorry. The healer hunter tells her that they've been played again, that this dashcam is broken too. Manhua curses the situation. She wonders how this guy saw them coming. He's beaten them to all the dashcams. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the conversation between ex-hunter Steve and Young Lee continues. Young Lee is a little confused by what he told her. She asks him if he wants Mr. Juno Kim to be in trouble. She then asks him if the accident involved an order from the association. Ex-hunter Steve tells her, as if he'd listened to them after they fired him. He remarks, for goodness' sake, that there is not a single word of apology for his brother, who was the victim, and that the first thing she says is to question him if he was ordered by the association. Young Lee tells him that they're checking everything they can, and ex-hunter Steve cuts her off and begins yelling. He asks her if she thinks he doesn't know that this is all just some pretentious procedure, and he tells her that he has nothing to say to anyone from the association. People begin whispering about them, realizing that the woman there is from the association, talking to the older brother of the kid who was involved in the recent accident. They wonder if Young Lee is there to offer a settlement. Young Lee realizes that she needs to come back later when there aren't any people around. Ex-hunter Steve returns to his younger brother's room in the hospital. He remarks that he's fed up with those bastards. The little boy asks him if they can stop now. He tells him that he doesn't like being in the room all day long, and that he has had enough of the shots they're giving him. Ex-hunter Steve grabs onto his shoulders, and in a scary voice, he asks him what he is talking about. He reminds the little boy that he promised him to get his revenge, and he tells him to just hang in there, because it will all be over tomorrow. The little boy tells him that he's hurting him. And then, suddenly, they hear a voice saying that he almost thought about letting this go. As Juno makes his entrance through the window, he says that he sees that this is what happened. He tells ex-hunter Steve that it's all starting to make sense now. No kid could possibly move such a heavy barricade, and it'd be a piece of cake for a former hunter to relocate a half-dead monster. He asks him if he tossed his little brother into the dungeon just to sabotage him, and he tells him that he should be ashamed of himself. The little boy keeps his head down. He realizes that the guy his brother was trying to get back at is the one who saved him. Ex-hunter Steve tells Juno that it's all his fault. He asks him how he could possibly know what it's like to lose a job when there isn't anyone else to put food on the table. Juno raises his hand at him and tells him that he was the one who picked a fight. Ex-hunter Steve screams, thinking, no, not another swing. Juno tells him to listen, and he places his hand on his shoulder. He tells him that he will let him go. He's thinking, why make a fuss now, when I can unlock another skill tomorrow? After all, thanks to him, he'll be getting another skill unlocked. Juno says he better get going now, and he tells him to just stay put and keep a low profile until tomorrow. Right before he leaves, he gives him a word of advice. Don't let others hold a grudge against you, things can get pretty damn ugly. You might get run over by a truck. He then tells him to be nice to his little brother. After Juno leaves, the little boy asks his big brother if he heard him. He said he'll forgive them. The next day, at 9 a.m., dozens of reporters have gathered in the press center of the Association Seoul headquarters, as they wait for cleaner Juno Kim from Cleaning Team 3 to give an official statement. Juno begins. I am Juno Kim, and I am from the Dungeon Cleaning Department. First and foremost, I'd like to give my deepest apologies to the child who was involved in the accident. I will take full responsibility for what happened, as it was I who left the dungeon unsupervised and unbarricaded. Therefore, I should be held fully accountable for this tragic accident. Juno is thinking, yes, he did it. None of those hunters and a new B-team leader could stop him. He closes his eyes, grinning with satisfaction, thinking it's showtime. And then suddenly, someone in the crowd exclaims that it's not true, it is I who's responsible for this accident. Juno's eyes fling wide open in shock, as everyone turns their attention to the man approaching the podium. Guntae tells Juno that he heard from Haeyeon Song that he'd be making a statement. Juno is completely baffled. He tells Guntae that what needed to be said has already been said, and Guntae cuts him off. He tells Juno to scoot over, and he pushes him aside. Guntae tells Juno that he has done a lot for the team, and this time, let him do the honors. Juno asks him what honors there to possibly take from the accident. And then, Guntae begins his statement. I am Guntae Park, the leader of Cleaning Team 3. If anything, the leader of a team exists to take the responsibility for anything that could happen, and since Juno Kim is a member of my team, I should be held accountable for his mistake. Juno is at a loss for words. Suddenly, someone asks what about the seniors who failed to look out for the juniors. Soyeon and Sang-hyuk take the stage, as they introduce themselves as members of Cleaning Team 3. Juno is completely flabbergasted. He shouts at them, asking what all this is. Soyeon exclaims that, since she was the one who trained Juno, she believes that she should be held accountable. Sang-hyuk exclaims that it is his fault because he failed to tame this crazy-ass fool. Juno is crying on the inside, wondering why everyone is always so eager to get in his way. He came too far to mess this one up. A reporter asks if they are saying that the accident is the entire cleaning team's fault. Sang-hyuk exclaims, no, it's my fault. Soyeon exclaims, no, it's mine. And Guntae exclaims, I'm the team leader, so I'm the one responsible. Juno is brooding quietly in the back. Meanwhile, people who are watching the press conference live are questioning what they're seeing. And then suddenly, Juno explodes. He lunges in front of them and shouts for all of them to shut the hell up. He then shouts at the reporters to just write down that it's cleaner Juno Kim's fault. The reporter directly in front of him is completely terrified of him. And then, someone in the back exclaims that it is not his fault. Minju introduces herself to the audience and informs them that the victim from the accident has something to say. Some of the reporters are surprised to find out that she is the team leader. One reporter recognizes her and remarks that she is the youngest person to become a leader of a strategy and operation team. The little boy says that he was just curious about the dungeon, so he moved the barricade and went inside the dungeon. He says that it was all him, and he is really sorry. All the reporters in the room begin chattering amongst themselves, questioning the little boy's statement. Minju tells the audience that she will make it clear the cleaning team is not to blame for the incident, and they did put up the barricade. Ex-hunter Steve is standing in the back of the room, and he calls his little brother a dummy. Only a fool would believe that a little kid could move such a heavy barricade. Ah-young Lee tells him that the little boy keeps saying that he did it alone, only because he wants to cover for his brother. Ex-hunter Steve is feeling guilty, and he begins crying. He says that his little brother has such a kind heart, and yet, here he is, his older brother, who tried to take advantage of him and use him. He doesn't deserve him. He tells Ah-young Lee that he will turn himself in. The little boy heard him, and he calls out to him. He recalls their conversation on that day. Bro, is Dad gone forever? Don't you worry. I'll work harder for the both of us. No worries, alright? The little boy begins crying. He runs towards him and tells him to wait. He asks him if he will be going to jail. Big brother Steve tells him that you gotta pay the price when you do wrong. The little boy grabs onto him, and he asks him if it's because of him. Big brother Steve tells him no, it's not. He then gets on his knees and embraces him. He tells him to take care of himself, and that he will be back before he knows it. He tells him not to eat only junk food, and to stay cool with his friends, and to stay safe. With a warm smile, the little boy says okay, and he tells him to also take care of himself. Meanwhile, the system has been continuously notifying Juno that the requirement to unlock polymorph is unfulfilled. Juno is begging desperately for it to stop,